Hello everyone. Hello, it's Monday. And here we are on Making It Monday. Just wait to see if anybody is looking in and listening and what have you. I've just finished sorting out downstairs after the boiler men have been and put me a new boiler, so that's brilliant. And yeah, at least it's been lovely weather. We could have the back door open and the dogs could go in the garden while the work was going on. So yes, welcome to Monday. I just need to know if everybody can hear me. So when you're in, just let me know if you can hear me, because everything's telling me that that you're okay, but I'm not sure that the sound is okay. Hi Gemma, can you hear me? Hello. There's a couple of people joining me now. So everybody's saying good evening, so I'm taking it that you can hear me. I'm just trying to update my, refresh rather, my my MacBook here so that I can see. And we'll make it bigger so that I can see your comments, because my phone's too far away. So hello, it's lovely to see everybody joining. Welcome to Monday. What is it? It's the 10th of October, 10/10, and here we are approaching Halloween. So our theme for Monday nights in October is a bit of Halloween. And so what we're going to do today is to have a little look at D. Now, I'm hoping that you've been onto the website or been onto the Facebook page and had a little look. If not, this is D. This in the middle is D. None of these other things are D. Those are pumpkins. So this is D. So I decided that I wanted something that would go with Bessie, because if you're putting treats into Bessie for your trick and treat, you might want to put your keys separately. So I don't know, your car keys, your house keys, and a bit of cash just in case you'd call in at the chippy on the way home. And I thought that we'd have something that would fit inside D and you could pop your keys in. So if you look somewhere behind me, I don't quite know where she is. She's here somewhere. Where is she? No, she's not behind me. I couldn't make her stand up. So here she is. So she's got nice little zip there and nice little tassels on the end of her, and this would go on your keyring if you wanted to put it on a keyring for other things, so you can carry you with you. So everybody's telling me that you can hear me very well, so it's lovely to see everybody. I can see lots of people coming in, so rather than call out all your names, I just want to say hello to everybody, because I'm afraid then that I'm going to miss people. So it's good to see everybody joining me. We've got over 200 people, so welcome everyone. It's very kind of you to join me. I'm really looking forward to making this for you. So yeah, had a good day. The weather's been gorgeous. Now I'm told that today is Canadian Thanksgiving Day. So if we've got anybody watching from Canada, happy Thanksgiving to you. It's not the American one. That's a bit later on in November. So today is Canadian Thanksgiving. So happy Canadian Thanksgiving Day. I hope you've had a lovely day, or are having a lovely day, because your time is behind us. So you've still got some lovely day to go with your celebrations and things. So I hope everybody's having a good time there. And I've got people saying hello from all over the UK and from other countries, so that's really nice. So without further ado, I am going to bend the camera down so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm hoping that it's going to be a good enough I'm throwing a lead away. Sorry, it's a good enough view for you, and that the light is okay. I haven't got a very good light in the ceiling light of this room. It's on my to-do list, but I have got extra lighting up there, so I'm hoping that it's all okay. All right, so let's start off, and we'll push the camera downwards. Excuse me for a moment. That's a little bit close for comfort, isn't it? So you should be able to see my machine. Oh, we're a bit wonky. Sorry about this, bear with me. See my arm? We're a bit wonky. That's a bit better. You should be able to see my machine and my bit of working space. But I am going to push my machine away for a couple of minutes while everything falls on the floor. I suppose I just as well put things on the floor and then they wouldn't fall on the floor, would they? Oh, sorry about the noise. I'm going to push that there for a couple of minutes while we have a look. So this is D. Is everybody happy with the view? All right. So I am conscious that I'm quite a long way away. My table is a little bit... it's a little bit wider than the table I had in the other room. You'll notice that I'm in a different room because I've upgraded to the bigger room. But this is D, and on my laptop I can see it fine, so I'm hoping you've got a good view. So Jeanette says you've got a good view there, so thank you, Jeanette, that's lovely. So I've got myself organised with my cutting out, etc. And I've got my pattern. So we're going for Halloween fabrics again, and you'll notice that the last two Halloween or October come end of September patterns that have been done, Bessie particularly was done in the fabrics that are the Moda Halloween fabrics. So if you're asking what fabrics these are, this is a jelly roll from Moda, so it's 2.5 inch strips by the width of the fabric, and I think you get 40 pieces of fabric in there. Some are the same pattern, so 2 or 3 of the same pattern, and I think you get 40, and they're 2.5 inch strips, and it's called a Moda Holiday Essentials Halloween. I forgot to write that down, so I'm hoping that's the right way. I know it's got holiday, I know it's got essentials, and I know it's Halloween, so they could be in a different order. But these are, so I've picked out 2 of those. So I've picked out an orange and a grey with the cobwebs on. So they're pretty, aren't they? I quite like those. And I've got the purple or lilac, whatever you'd like to call it, for my lining. So I've cut out that. And all the measurements and everything obviously on the pattern. So that's fine. I want wadding, and so I've cut that out as well to the right measurement. Well, it's almost the right measurement. It's a little bit long. We need a zip, and I've got a zip. Now, for a change, I've got a zip that's not a zip on the roll, which is not like me at all. But I found this one. It kind of fell out of the cupboard, and I thought that's ideal. So that's our zip, and then we've got some lining inside. I forgot to show you the inside. Let me show you the inside. So as we open the zip, if we were to turn it inside out, as you can't tell from the pattern, I won't turn it all inside out, but we have the lining and the outer all bound with this lovely fabric, and I've done the same as the one of the outside ones. So I hope you can see that. I'm busy turning it through on my laptop because of the sound, because of the delay on it, but I think you can see that that's the inside there. You can see better from the back, and I'll show you how to do that. It's slightly different than we've done before, so this is it could be, it might not be, you might have done it lots of times like this, but it might be for some of you a new little technique to do, and so there we are. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to sew down the long edge of these 2 strips. So we're basically sewing these strips together, and we're just going to sew down the long edge. Now you'll see that this fabric, because it's a pre-cut, it's cut with pinked edges. That's to stop it fraying. So it's what we want to stop it fraying, but don't be put off by that, because we just ignore it and do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so I'm putting one on top of the other. I'm going to bring the machine in further for you to see without throwing everything on the floor this time. Let me put the scissors over there and try and keep the desk a bit neater. There we go. It's not easy to pull it when you've got a cutting mat as well, besides everything else. So the cutting mat can go across a bit. Now, can everybody see that? I know it's from the back, so that's not ideal, but I'm hoping that you can see what I'm doing here. Shall I push it forward a little bit again? And then we've got the whole table that you can see what I'm doing, so I'll try and use that. So here we go. So I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to whiz down this one. If I can find my foot, there it is. Don't worry about doing a back stitch or anything. This is a very simple little project and you'll whip this up in no time. But it's a nice little project. Somebody mentioned on the Facebook page earlier, I think in the Making It Monday group, that if you made this a little bit longer, it could go for, oh, see, habit there, I had to do a back stitch. It could be used for pencils or all sorts of things, you know, if you wanted to make a little bit longer. And as we always do, we always try and encourage you to do your own thing, you know, whatever you want to do is fine. Now, I've stitched down those two, as you can see. I'm going to turn my iron on. And what I would like to do is to open those seams at the back. I know it's a little bit fiddly, but it just reduces the bulk. So I'm going to pop my ironing mat up there for a minute. So I tend to go from the front for a second, and then I'll turn it, sorry, my iron's in the way, then I'll turn it over and open the seam up. I find it opens up a little bit easier. It's difficult, isn't it, sometimes when the seam won't open up and it just folds over, but I find if I do it from the front first, it kind of behaves itself. Kath has learned good habits from Lizzy. Too true. How many other people, hands up, who've learned good habits from Lizzy? We've learned a lot from Lizzy, haven't we? So we're forever grateful for that, because I wouldn't be here today without her. So a little shout out for Lizzy. She's having a night off tonight, and so she's probably watching me. The fabric is gorgeous, I agree. It's just so pretty, isn't it? The orange is so vibrant, and even that grey with the cobwebs on looks great, doesn't it? So that's that bit. What we're going to do now is to just pop on our wadding. So I've just cut this wadding out, and it's wider than, or longer, should I say, than I need. So I am going to take it out of view a second. I think you might be able to see me from there, because I want to spray to stick the wadding onto the back of that fabric, and I don't want to get it on my machine. So that's all I'm doing, is a little spray, but I'm spraying on the wadding. You can just about see that I'm doing that. I'm sorry it's not a very good view, so bear with me for a minute. And there we are. So I've got my wadding stuck on the back, and I'm going to just trim it off where it's a little bit long. Okay, so as I say, and what I am going to do, actually thinking about it now, push that out of the way for a little bit. I'm going to put this on my mat and make sure that it's the right length, because I think I just did it slightly longer, just because I could, just in case I didn't get the ends completely right. So I'm going to trim that side off. As I say, all the measurements are in the pattern, so don't worry, it's all there for you. As somebody asked me earlier as well, what wadding that I recommend. Well, I don't recommend any particularly. I can just tell you what I've used, other than recommending that it's not too thick. And I've just used an ordinary 80-20 wadding. So that's 80% cotton, 20% polyester that you'd actually use in a quilt or whatever you wanted. So there's no strict recommendation, except don't use anything too thick. Okay, and if you've got one that actually is an iron-on one, then that's perfect, no problem at all with that. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to pop in our zip. So what we need to do here is to get out our quilter's tape. I haven't put it on the pattern, because if you don't want to use quilter's tape, you don't have to. But I find, especially when I'm doing a live demonstration, it just helps things along. So we've got our fabric right side up and our wadding underneath. Okay, and we're going to pop some quilter's tape on there right at the top. Now, if you've got directional fabric, please make sure that this is the right way around. I would advise not to use directional fabric, because this is going to be folded. So if you can manage to get something that's not directional, it'll make your life an awful lot easier, and it'll make the finished item a lot nicer as well. All right, so take the back off your quilter's tape, and this time, and now we're going to put the zip on. So I've got one that's longer, and that's usual for us now, isn't it? You all know that. So I'm going to make sure, and I think people get het up with the fact that when it's closed, it should be on a certain side. Well, this is lucky because it is on the left side, but you know, I never mind if it's not. It's one of those things. We all open zips with both hands, don't we? So I'm going to place the zip face down, and I'm going to pop it on there, and that holds it in place. Then again, if you don't want to do this, don't worry, you could sew that zip in now, and then you could actually add the lining afterwards if you wanted to. All right, but I'm going to sew them both together, so a bit of quilter's tape really helps to keep everything as if it's just one piece of fabric. That's a little bit long. Trim it off. I've finally got that, there we go, stuck on my machine. I find it sticks to everything, but that's good because we want it sticky. And don't worry about using it. It's especially designed for this type of work, and if it was something that you were going to wash, it would wash away. If it's something that you're not going to wash, it'll stay there and it won't hurt anything, and it won't bung up your needle either. So this happens to be plain fabric, so there's no right and wrong with this. But if this were a two-side, different either side, I would put this now wrong sides down. All right, and we need to make sure that we line up the top, but we also line up the sides. So let me just pop it on and I'll show you what I mean. So if you can see, oh, I'm never in the right place. These two bits, this one and this one, are both lining up at that edge. All right, and on the other side, that lines up as well on that edge, and it's all lined up on the raw edge at the top. So we will sew that down, and I've already got my zipper foot on, but you would change your foot now if you want to your zipper foot. That would make life easier, but if you haven't got one, it's not impossible. It's no problem at all. I've got my stitch length on 2.4 and I'm going for it. You might ask me why I've stitched on the wadding side, and the reason for that is the wadding side has the zip right side up. Can you see that? I don't know whether you can see that little, you can see the zip slider there. So that zip is right side up because we've got the right side of the fabric next to it. So I always do there because then I can push my foot right up to the zip edge. Or you can have your zipper foot in at about 1/4, 3/8 of an inch, and then you know it's not going to jump off or anything like that. It's quite safe. So I'll just get rid of my ends. Best to do this as I go along. And we've got the zip sewn in. So as we pop this back like that, all right, push the two sides, the two lots of fabric back and pull them away from the zip. I am now going to use a couple of pins just to stop that moving. If you want to, and it's advisable, bring in your iron and just gently, only a little bit needs to, push that back so there's no pleats or tucks or folds or anything next to that zip, and that makes it nice and neat. So now I'm going to top stitch down that side. So down along that fold there, just going to top stitch. Now you might have a preference as to where you want to top stitch. I like to go as closely as I can, and this tiny little foot that I've got here is absolutely fantastic for that. It is supposed to be the zipper foot for this machine, And I do use it for zips, but I use it for most things, to be honest. Okay, so don't know whether you'll be able to see that there. It's not a great light, I'm so sorry, and the zip is dark. If I hold it there, you can see it better in the light of the machine, I think. Okay, so that's that. Actually, I'm going to just trim that little bit of wadding there. You can see that's sticking out, because your wadding will stretch as you've got it under your machine. It will stretch. Okay, so I can take my pins out, and we've got our zip in one side. All right, so you can see what we've got there. I'm going to flip that over. Actually, no, I'll do the other side first. I'm not going to flip it over. So I've got right side. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring this up so that we can sew it to that side of the zip. So we've sewn the zip this side, and we want to sew this piece of fabric to that side. If we had two pieces, that would be easy, wouldn't it? But we haven't got two pieces, we've got one long piece. So out comes my quilter's tape again. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to put quilter's tape along that edge, right along the very edge of that. It doesn't matter if it's not quite up to the edges at the sides, you know, if it's not quite as long as the width of your piece, because it will hold in place. So you can see that I've put the quilter's tape along. It's the right side up of the zip and quilter's tape along the edge. It's been particularly difficult to get the back off, but I've done it. I do have a bin over that side, so don't think I'm throwing things on the floor. And again, line up your edges. It's very important to line up your edges either side here. All right, so, and line up the edges at the top. So that's that one side done. Then we're going to flip over, and we're going to bring up the lining as well. So if the lining were two-sided, you know, you had a right side and a wrong side, this would be the right side at the moment. So we're putting right sides down. Okay, so I'll get out some quilter's tape and pop that on. Same as we did before. Bring up your lining, make sure it's lined up on all those three sides. So lined up along there with the front, lined up along there, and lined up with the raw edge along there. Is that quite clear for you? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to sew that exactly the same as I did the other one, and then I'll show you how we can top stitch it without getting in a muddle. Okay. So has everybody had the fantastic weather that I've had today? It's just been so warm, and of course the men were putting the boiler in today, so they had to test the boiler afterwards. Well, it was sweltering with the sun shining through the conservatory doors and windows and the central heating going full blast because they had to test it. I thought I was going to expire. It was absolutely boiling. So what we've got then is a tube. One tube, well, two tubes. One tube of the right side, that's that bit, and one tube of the lining. All right. So what we want to do is to top stitch that other side, that second side of the zip, because we want it matching the first side. So the first thing I'm going to do is open the zip, so you can see that I've opened the zip there. Okay. And then I'm going to turn all this through so that the right side is outside, the outer is outside and the lining is inside. So I can't do this backwards. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can try. So if you have your fingers in the right bit, what am I meaning? The outer bit. Yeah, if you have your fingers in there and you hold on to the zip with those two fingers and you turn it through, just turn it. That will mean that the lining, as if by magic, is on the inside. See what I mean? Does everybody get that? Turn it through, and then the lining comes onto the inside. So what we want is the right side of the bag out at the moment. And what we're going to do is, if you've got a zip on a roll, you might want to sew along there a few stitches to stop this zip slider going off that end. If you've got just a longer zip like I have, then you don't need to do that because there's a little stopper on the end. All right, but open the zip out as much as you can. Again, we're going to pull the lining away from the zip, flatten it down, finger press for a moment, pull the outer away from the zip, and I'm going to put a couple of pins in there just to make sure that those don't move. And exactly the same as the other side, I'll just bring my mat up and just give that a bit of a press with the iron, only a gentle press, just so it remembers where it should be and knows who's boss, basically. It's nothing like a bit of heat in the kitchen to know who's boss. So, okay, is everybody started off very wet with you, but then been a lovely sunny afternoon, has it? Oh, well, that's good. We had rain overnight, but it's been so gorgeous today. It's been lovely. So put my mat away. So what I'm going to do now, it doesn't matter which end you start, from the open zip end or from the other end, you can see that as long as you pop that out the way, it's going to be really easy to top stitch along that piece, along that edge there. All right. I think my thread is thinking about coming out of my needle, so let's sort that out for a moment. Sorry, bear with me while I just thread my needle. You'll have heard me say before that the needle threader on this machine is so complicated, I just don't have a clue. It's easier to thread by hand. Right, so with your zip open, just pull it out. Like I say, because that's under pressure there, put a few stitches over there if you've got a zip on a roll, or if it makes you feel more secure, then that's fine. I usually put my stitch length up to 3 and go fairly steadily when I'm top stitching, only to make sure that I don't wobble. It's all practice, isn't it? Okay, just cut my ends off here. Are you all right? Not too bad in Rochdale. So yeah, I think Karen's up that area as well, and a bit of mixedness. So thank you, Lizzie. Put the pattern link on to the website. So don't forget to go and download. If you haven't got the digital pass, you can buy the digital pass before you download, and then you'll get all 4 patterns this month for the price of 3, basically. So that's a good bargain. So there we are. I'm all top stitched. If I close the zip up, you'll see it a little bit. Oh, there we go. A little bit better that we're all top stitched. All right. Okay. So we're getting there. It's going to be a quick one. I'm going to open that zip right out, and I'm going to turn this inside out. All right. So now we've got the outer, the pretty fabric on the inside, and we've got the lining showing. And what we want is the zip up. So take a moment to make sure your lining is, it will want to move one side or the other, but it will come back, I promise. So just make sure it's lining up all the way down the edges here. And mine's gone pretty easily. Now the next bit is to fold this so that you've got a little bit of fabric at the top. I mentioned in the pattern how much I've folded it by. Doesn't matter if you have yours in the middle, like that, or a bit further up like I have. So put it where you want to. You can have it right at the top if you like, with just a little bit left. All right, but we're going to fold it like that, and then we're sorted. Now, I can't seem to find my little tab, So I'm going to cut some more because we've got plenty of time. Just bear with me a second while I grab some fabric. And I don't know where it is. It's probably gone on the floor, but never mind. I am going to cut my tab so that I can show you how to make it and pop it in, because we need to put it in next. So just need to trim a little bit of this off, as we wanted a bit of a narrower tab. And then I can bring my iron in. Now you've seen Lizzy and me do this plenty of times to make a tab or a strap, or you know, whatever you want. So I've got my tab, just going to press it for a second, and then we fold in half lengthwise. Can you see that there? Is that close enough for you? Fold in half lengthwise, and then we fold the ends to the middle. So this is where my left hand will have to come into play. So fold the one long edge into the middle and press, and then we're going to fold the other long edge into the middle, and you can press again, or you can just fold over, whichever you're confident with. There we go. There we go. Diana, you've lost your tab too. So, do you need me to wait until you cut it? Diana always sews along with us on a Monday, and there's a few others do as well. So there's some tape on my iron. Oh, there is some tape on my iron. Thank you very much. Quilter's tape. Do you know, thankfully, it's the paper bit and not the other bit. So thank you very much for that. Who's that? Rosina. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we've got our tab. So that's going to be a quarter of what it started off as. All right. And on this side, you've got your one fold, and on the other side, your two folds. So I'm now going to top stitch that, the same as we did for the zip. And my little foot helps me enormously on this. I'm going to do it the other way because that end's a bit wobbly. Okay. So at this point you can break your thread and start down the other side, but I tend to go along because we're not going to see that end, because it's going to be folded inside the binding. There we go. Just cut off my threads. Have you caught up, Diana? Have you managed to cut your tab? And you've probably done it quicker than me, to be honest. There we go. Give that a little press. Bring in our pouch again. Now, to be fair, I'm going to use my screwdriver because I don't know where my little pokey thing is. I'm going to use this. This is folded very nicely on the outside, but on the inside, I don't know whether you can see. If I hold that up right close to the camera, can you see that just in here, the fabric inside is folded on itself, and it shouldn't be. All right? I don't know whether you can see that. I think you can. I think you can just about manage to see it. It's folding in on itself a little bit. And the same with this end. So what I'm going to do with that is very gently, but firmly, use my screwdriver to push that into the lining. And then let me show you what happens. If you hold it, then bring it up to you again, and you can see that that fold is perfect. Can you see there? And the other side as well, that's perfect as well. So do that to the top, and I'm going to also do it to the bottom, so that you've got no pleats or tucks or anything. So you need to make sure that that's nicely folded. And if you do it with something not sharp, but like the end of a screwdriver, or I sometimes use my rainbow pokey tool, but it's gone walkabout. I think it's gone with my tab. So there you have that ready to sort out, and we're going to fold the tab in half, Mine hasn't quite met at the end, probably bad cutting in a rush. So I'm just going to trim it off. So I've trimmed a little bit off so it's equal. And I'm going to tuck that in. Doesn't matter which side, but I tend to put it where the zip is closed. I'm going to tuck that in there. Somewhere between the fold of the fabric and the zip. Doesn't matter if it sticks out a little bit, but you do want it at right angles. So pop your hand in. I'll show you where it is. There it is. Can you see that? And when we fold that back down, it just gets hidden in there. Make sure it stays at right angles, because it looks silly if it's pointing up or down. And push it away from the zip tape if you can, because that will just give you extra bulk. So it's neatly sat in there now. So I want a couple of clips just to hold that in place. And now I've scored almost, not quite scored, but I have scored that fabric a little bit with that screwdriver. It's staying in place when I'm folding it back. It's not moving at all. So there we have the tab. I've put a little clip there as well. We want to open up that zip. And we are going to sew down those both edges. All right. So a couple more clips. If you want to sew across this end of the zip as well to hold that in place, then you can do that. That's not a problem. It does help for that not to move, but I'm just going to do it like this for tonight because I can. All right. Oh, thank you for the hearts. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Oh, Jackie says it's clear. That's good. Okay. So what I've done is I've put so I can feel it under here, put my tab in there, folded in half and the raw edge to there, that edge. And then I've tidied up the two edges. You can see that I have got a little bit of wadding showing there, but I can trim that later. We're going to trim these seams anyway, so don't worry about that. I'm now going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, no less, just a 1/4 inch. Okay. So I'm going to do a batch stitch at the bottom. It doesn't really matter if you start at the bottom or the top, but I am going to start in the same in both places and on both sides, if you see what I mean. So hold your zip together to make sure that it's not folded, or like I say, you could actually sew that together before we do this, and a little back stitch at the top. I'm going to flip over this time so that I can start at the bottom edge again, because I don't want it to be twisted, and sometimes if you do it from opposite edges it can twist. So if your sides are not exact like mine, just because there's a little bit of extra wadding and underneath is more or less, just go with the flow, because we're going to trim this in a minute. So 1/4 inch, as long as we're catching 1/4 inch into all the layers, then we're winning. I'm going to take those off. Oh, actually, I've got my zip open a little bit too much. Won't go across. Never mind. That's it. And start again. Okay. I'm going to push that out. So oh, I don't know what that was, but it's gone. It's gone on the floor. Sorry about the noise. It's worse than bonfire night in here, so noisy. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do now, you can see just down here, just about, I'll show you from up here. I am going to trim those seams down to just about 1/8 inch, no less than 1/8 inch, or you're going to lose your edges. Okay, so if I bring it here, you can just about see if I bring it across. I'm going to trim those seams. So put the 1/8 inch mark onto your stitch line, and with your rotary cutter, now do make sure your zip is open at this stage, because we're going to trim the zips as well. So 1/8 of an inch mark on your stitch line and trim. And the same the other side, 1/8 of an inch on your stitch, 1/8 of an inch mark on your stitch line and trim. So now that looks lovely and neat, doesn't it? Apart from my threads at the bottom. But that's lovely and neat. So our next trick is to add the binding on the inside. If you don't want to add binding, then trim that with a pinking shears. I wouldn't trim it to 1/4 of an inch, but you can just trim it with a pinking shears if you don't want to add lining. But I quite like the snazzy add binding, sorry. I quite like the snazzy binding. And this is a slightly different way of doing the binding. Now, on the pattern I say to do it from a particular side, but it really, really doesn't matter which side you do it from. So, we're going to put the line at the, oh, I keep saying lining and it's binding. This is binding, okay? My brain is mush. We are going to kind of centre it. It doesn't really matter as long as you don't put it one on one end and that. So we want it in the middle-ish. There's about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch or something either side. And we want to pop it on there. And I'm going to put a clip in the middle just to hold that in place. Because then I'm going to do it right side to you. Turn it over. And I'm going to bring these two, now that is a little bit white, it's not quite enough to bring over, so let me adjust that. Right, bear with me fiddling, there we go. It's not fiddly, it's just me. So these two edges are obviously sticking out, so we're going to bring that over there and clip it. And we're going to bring that edge over there and clip it. And then we're going to sew at 1/4 of an inch, so that means our stitch line will be inside the stitch line we've already done. That's why we've trimmed it off. We're now going to do another 1/4 of an inch seam down the inside of that one, and we're going to catch those two pieces in at the end. Does that make sense? All right. So what we've done, just to recap, we've put the binding up against the raw edge, just held it in place. Then we've turned it over and brought the ends in towards the middle on each end. All right. And then we're going to stitch with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, including those ends. So stitch over those ends. All right. So let me do that, and then I'll show you exactly what I've done. So find your 1/4 of an inch. If you haven't got a 1/4 inch foot, use your machine, because it's very, very handy. It's what I do most of the time. I find that my 1/4 inch foot turns out not to be a 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going fairly slowly just to make sure I stay on that 1/4 of an inch. Readjust your fabric if you need to. And then catch this end down as well. Do you see this is caught now under the foot? Can you see? You can't see. I'm so sorry. Didn't bring it in enough. Can you see now? I do apologise. I'll show you the other side as well anyway. So you can see this little bit now. I'm stitching over that as well. Do a little back stitch because we have to turn that through, and it helps to do a little back stitch. Okay, so before I go on and finish the binding on that side, I'll do the other side for you as well. Doesn't matter which way round you do it. So I'll try and do it your side. So here's my binding, and I'm going to try and have an overlap equal either end and bring that up to the raw edges and pop a clip under. So bringing it towards me because I can't lift it up. Okay, so equal amounts of fabric, make sure it's right up to the edge. Equal amounts of fabric lying off both ends. Flip it over. Make sure the raw edges are together again. You could always put more clips on there if you want to. Bring that one over and add a clip. And then I'll do it I'm trying to do it so you can see it well. And bring that one over and add a clip. It's not very good with my left hand. There we are. And we're going to sew again 1/4 inch all the way down there. So you can see better this time when I add it onto my machine. I do apologise for last time. You can see that I'm putting the presser foot over the top of this. All right, so I'm stitching. I've got my pouch, and then I've got my binding underneath and on top. Just to make sure that I'm making that clear for you. Stitch all the way down. Go careful over your zip because we've now got a fair amount of fabric under our needle. Okay, and carry on stitching over the top of your binding again. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're almost finished. It's 10 to 8, we'll be finished well before 8 o'clock. Oh, I just did that automatically without showing you. Dear me. Okay, so if you leave it, if you have your work this side with the binding bits up like that, all we're going to do is flip those over. And it's as easy as that. And do the other one, the other side, pull it towards the outside, and it will just flip over. Easy peasy. I am going to use my iron to just push that back so it makes it really nice and neat. So do it from that side first, then turn over, and then give these a press. Press here so that you've got a nice crisp fold in there, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. So have a nice crisp fold. And then the next bit is as if you'd done it exactly the same as you've always done it. So only the how to put it on bit is different. So I'm going to fold the outer edge just before the raw edges of the purse or pouch or whatever you want to call it, and then I'm going to fold that over, and that way you get a nice neat edge. So fold it in, kind of almost touching the edge but not quite, and then fold it over, and you can adjust your corner or your turning as you want to. So I'll try and do it towards you this time, so that's got a bit of thread on it. Cut that off. So fold this to just before it's touching the raw edge of the purse, and then this will fit nicely over your stitch line. Okay. And then whichever bit you did first, so whichever side you put it on, we're now going to stitch down there. If you want to stitch in the ditch, then do that. So that stitch in the ditch means stitch along that seam line, then you can do that. But you can actually stitch just inside of that. Technically speaking, this is a little bit wider on that side than it is on this side. So there's every possibility you'll catch it all in if you stitch in the ditch, but I don't want to risk it because I don't want to have to do it again. So I am going to flip it onto the back and do it from the back, from the bit that you've just turned over, and then I know that the front will be caught in. So up there again, I don't know, between an 1/8 and a 1/16 of an inch. Just be careful of your machine because there are lots of layers. Just go very gently, especially over your zip. And we're stitching that binding in place. This way as well, if you do it from this side, you know that you've brought enough over and it's nice and smooth. Do remember that this is on the inside of your project, so unless somebody goes deliberately looking, don't worry about it. So can you see that I've top stitched down there? It's not great light, I'm sorry. And the top stitching has come out on the top. Sometimes it's come in the ditch and sometimes it's just over. All right. So I'll show you again what I did. Fold this bit towards the raw edges of the pouch and fold over again. And this bit towards the edge of the pouch, fold over again, and the middle bit you just tuck in because it goes with the flow. If I could get the clip on. My fingers are not working tonight. There we go. So tuck it under so it's nice and neat and fold over. Then again we're going to sew on the bit that you've just folded. If you feel that this is a bit bulky for your machine, so I haven't folded that very well, then you can hand stitch this down. And indeed, normally I would hand stitch binding down, but again, this is inside, it's a purse, and really not going to see it very often. You're only going to see it when you open the zip. Oops, just tuck that in. Manipulate your fabric a bit so it goes where you want it to, not where it wants to go. There we go. So that's all nice and neat on that side as well. You see? And then fold it over. It's nice and neat down the centre. So we have our zip open. And all we have to do now is to turn it through and we're done. Well, we're nearly done. We've got one more little thing to do. So if you pop your thumb into the corner and push your binding away from you, that's going to come out really nice and sharp and you can just finish it off. So I use my left thumb this time, push the binding away, and this time you've got the tab. We'd forgotten about the tab, well I had. You've got the tab in place. Now if you wanted to baste the tab on first before you did all this, then that's absolutely fine as well. It's advisable if you think that's easier for you. But I just went for it. So the bottom ones are not so easy to push through because of the length of it, but I'm going to use a pokey tool in a minute, even if it's only my screwdriver. Who'd have thought a screwdriver would be so handy? That would be if I could find it. Never mind. I'm going to use the end of my quick unpicker. And it should come out nice and square. And don't be afraid to push it because you've got all that binding on the inside that's going to give it a little bit of strength and you're not going to go through your fabric. We can close our zip. Let's push that bit out again. If I had my little pokey tool, it wouldn't slip. It would be easier for me. There we go. And there we have it. The only thing that we have to do now is give it a really decent press. And if you've got some steam, would be a good idea to use it. So looking at this, it might be an idea. The tab's just moved slightly, so it might be an idea for you to baste yours on before you sew it in the seam. You know, it's no big deal, but if you want that to be perfect, which I would like to have had it perfect, but I haven't, this one, as you can see, is perfect. It sits on top of one another, so that's fine. But this one will be my lovely imperfect one. I don't mind. I'm okay with that. I'm not perfect, so why should I have a perfect pouch? On your to-do list, Mary. Yeah, it's so easy. You'll do it ever so quickly. The only thing that I'm going to do now, if I can find them, if they haven't fallen on the floor, there's a little bit of ribbon and there's a few beads. And I'm hoping that I can find my big-eyed needle so I can thread the ribbon through. I think so. Let me see. So I'm going to fold the ribbon and put it onto the into the zip pull. And I have to push it through with something because it's not playing ball. That's better. And then push it in, and I normally tie a knot there because it wants to come undone. So tie a knot. And then what we're going to do with these ends is to thread some beads on. If you haven't got any beads, you could put a button, or you don't have to put anything if you don't want to. Come on, there we go. So I think I'm going to put the black one on first, and then the orange one, and then I'm going to tie a knot. For this first one, doesn't matter how long it is, I can tie it where I like, and then the next one I'll do to match it. So for these particular beads I only need one knot because they've got quite a small hole and they will hold. Lovely little beads, these little wooden ones, and they are all sorts of pretty colours. So if you wanted to go really zany, you could put oh yes, let's do it. Let's put the orange one on first on this side, and then the black, and then we are done. So just tie your knot and try and bring it kind of a similar length. You can have it shorter if you like, it'd be fine. And then I cut the ends off, and there's my little ribbon pulls. I wish the light was better, I'm so sorry. I think it's better on my laptop. It's not so good on my phone. So there we have it. We have D. Now you won't forget that name. It's just D. You can put 2 E's after it if you like, but it's still only a D, isn't it? And how quick was that to make? I tried to go slowly so that the people just, sewing along were able to keep up, even if a couple of us did have to do our tab again. And so there we have it. What do you think? What do you think? Gemma thinks it's fabulous. Let me put the camera up so you can see me. I know it's not as nice as looking at D. There we go. So there she is. And I can put her, I think I'll put her just in front of the hedgehog. There she is. And I'll put a little buddy with it as well. There they are. Ready to pop into Bessie and go trick-or-treating. You'll know where your keys are then when the kids are all running around and causing you havoc. So that's it. So thank you very much for joining in with me tonight. It's been really lovely, and I'm going to finish on time, so I've got 2 minutes. I just wanted to remind you that if you're a gold member, you don't need to buy the MIM patterns because they're included in your gold membership subscription. So you just go to the gold members page and download them, so you don't need to pay for those. Anybody else that's not a gold member, and you can become one if you want to, that's not a problem. If you want to just sign up, £6.95, you get 3 gold patterns a month, you get 4 or 5 MIMs depending how many Mondays are in the month, and you get lots of other sort of benefits and joining with games, competitions. You get Thursday Night Live exclusive to the gold group. So go onto the website and join gold group, and then you'll get your MIMs for free. Otherwise, you can go to the website and buy a digital pass. So that will cost you, as I said, £3 instead of the 4 or 5, depending on how many Mondays in the month, for the MIM patterns. And otherwise, they'll be £1 each. So even at £1 each, cheap as chips. Okay, lovely little patterns, and we'll always try and get a good technique in. If you don't like zips, don't be frightened of it. You can see how easy that was. Replay the video, stop and start, so that you can practice your zips as well. It's good to practice on little things like that because they're so much easier. And there we have it. Whilst you're on the website, have a look at the Children in Need bears. They are £2.99, and £2.50 of that goes straight to Children in Need. Lizzy is saving up all that, and we've got over 5,200, probably over 5,300 now. So it's just the Wix cost, and that's the website cost and PayPal costs that are taken out. We don't get a penny for that. And if you want a very special bag for a very special occasion, have a look for Kathy. That's all I'm saying. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been lovely. Lizzy is here on Thursday for you at 7 p.m. in the Gold group. So if you're not a Gold member and you want to see Lizzy on Thursday, you'll need to join up. And it would be very lovely to have you join us there. And Lizzy will also be here next Monday with her Mim. And so I'll see you in a couple of Mondays' time. And take care, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night. I'm just going to lean over and press the button. Bye.